Hello, Sky News daily listeners. I'm James Matthews, one of the US correspondents at Sky News. I'm also one of the presenters of the TRUMP100 podcast. We drop new episodes every morning at 6 a.m., charting the first 100 days of the new Trump presidency. And it's fair to say there is always something to talk about. We thought we'd share our latest episode with you here. If you like it, search TRUMP100 in your podcast app. Click follow, and you can join us every day. Have a listen. And Neil is back with the Sky News Daily on Monday. Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kelner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For TRUMP100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
We're a third of the way through now.
We're a third, yeah. And I think about that, I focus on it, and then I remember 2/3 to go.
It's about the time when you start reaching for your hydration sachets. And
that would be whiskey. Never mind hydration. I'm James Matthews.
And I'm Martha Kelner.
And this is day 33 of TRUMP100.
Coming up, I'm speaking to a health worker sacked via email by Elon Musk and his minions. Those are her words, not mine.
But first, I've been at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, a sort of Republican wonderland. And Martha, here's a script. Billionaire walks onto a stage wearing shades in the company of the Argentinian president.
A little stage prop.
Waves a chainsaw around and says,
I'm living the meme. It's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme, and it's pretty much what's happening, you know. You're like, I think you're bigger. I mean, Doge started out as a meme. Think about it. And now it's real. Isn't that crazy? It is.
That wasn't a nightmare. That actually happened. That was Elon Musk, live and unleashed on the stage at CPAC. What did you think?
It is sometimes difficult to decide with this administration, isn't it? What is real life and what's a figment of your imagination? If I'd not have just sat through the entirety of that Elon Musk appearance, I might have thought it was the latter, that it was utterly bizarre. I found myself thinking back to sketches from WWE, from the wrestling, and I was expecting sort of Stone Cold Steve Austin to walk out with a metal chair and smash it over someone's head.
Yeah, meets David Brent.
Exactly. Yeah, sort of bizarre theatre. But you know, this is a whole new world now, isn't it?
Yeah, bizarre, I suppose entertaining and yet terrifying for many people, because Elon Musk does terrify people in this country, many of them who don't like the job he's doing. Clearly, he has his supporters.
We're going to come back to Elon Musk in a bit, but that chat, interview, whatever you want to call it, took place at CPAC, didn't it, James? And I know you spent the morning there. First of all, what is it?
It's the big annual gathering of Conservatives, the Republican Party, essentially. They come from far and wide, big name speakers, a kind of party conference as we'd know it in the UK. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, he gave a speech. He called Donald Trump the president of peace, spoke of Europe being on the cusp of peace. He didn't get in really to the nuts and bolts of the Ukraine conflict, but very much reaffirmed the position of Donald Trump as it stands. We also bumped into a blast from Donald Trump's past.
It's no need talking.
Steve Bannon, former strategist, architect, of course, of his 2016 campaign, now a right-wing radio show host. He has quite the entourage, Martha, sachets around in the company of something like 6 people, security, PR helpers and so on. They were keeping him away from us. But I asked a question that actually turned his head.
Is Donald Trump going to take us into World War III?
Donald Trump's taking us out of World War III. What are you talking about? Have you noticed he's negotiating a peace deal after the oligarchs and after the political class in Davos took us in a more brutal war than World War II? What should have happened if Boris Johnson, what outlet are you from?
Sky News UK.
The British people should be embarrassed. Boris Johnson should be tried as a war criminal. Boris Johnson went over on the eve of what turned out to be a war and totally undid what could have been an interim agreement with Zelensky and the Russians
Agreement on whose terms?
Hang on. So, to calm things down. And what happened is that we've had now 3 years of a bloody war.
So no shortage of Trump fans in that room then, James, and some British Conservatives there too.
Yeah, that's right. Nigel Farage was in town, leader of the Reform Party in the UK, kind of Trump whisperer of sort. Farage's party, right-leaning, it's rapidly, of course, becoming the third-party alternative in the UK. I asked him about Donald Trump, Zelensky, and the rift between the two. All right. Tell me, Mr. Farage, do you condemn Donald Trump's remarks? Do you condemn Donald Trump calling Vladimir Zelensky a dictator?
I applaud President Trump for launching peace negotiations.
Do you think Vladimir Zelensky is a dictator?
No, of course. I mean, don't be ridiculous. But you never.
Is that ridiculous? Donald Trump has called him a dictator. Donald Trump has called Zelensky a dictator. Is that ridiculous?
If that's what he thinks, that's what he thinks.
Is that ridiculous?
Take everything Trump says, not literally, truthfully, but not literally. He promised a negotiation. He promised he'd talk to Putin. He is. This is progress. And the words that he chooses to use in his own style to get there matter far less.
You say progress, Mr. Farage, but many...
Yeah, I watched Nigel Farage's speech at CPAC, and I thought it was particularly forming. You know, he called Donald Trump simply the bravest man I have known. He called on the audience to applaud him. He was also calling Elon Musk a hero of free speech. That's just a few weeks after Elon Musk was calling for Nigel Farage to be removed as the head of Reform UK. He knows what side he wants to be on. But yes, certainly worrying for Ukraine as if they weren't concerned enough already.
Yeah, Nigel Farage, he wasn't the only Brit in town. Liz Truss turned up, former British Prime Minister, gave a speech, said, we want to flood the zone. That was a reference to the executive orders that Trump has been signing. She said that Donald Trump and Elon Musk's style of governance would go down brilliantly back home in the UK. That's the Truss view.
But that's not quite what the polls are suggesting, though, is it? Because a YouGov poll carried out earlier this week said that almost 2/3 of Brits don't like Elon Musk. And there was another YouGov poll today saying Brits tend to think that it's more important to support Ukraine than to maintain good relations with the US. Only 20% of those people polled said that they favoured maintaining US relations. This, of course, is the backdrop to Keir Starmer's visit to the White House, which is now confirmed for next Thursday.
Yeah, nothing about the context is easy for Starmer here. Strategically, somehow he's got to pull the Americans back to a position that Ukraine and European allies view as a credible path forward that carries security guarantees and doesn't embolden Vladimir Putin. We're a long way from that.
It's difficult, though, isn't it, for Keir Starmer and anyone to really read what Donald Trump's foreign policy attitude is in a traditional sense. You know, he's been described as an isolationist, as being America first. But I heard someone the other day describe his foreign policy as transactional, which I think is the best way of describing how Donald Trump governs. He is totally informed by his own self-interest, and that extends to foreign policy as well. And that's why it makes these visits of foreign leaders very difficult for them to navigate.
Yeah, I think you're right, Martha. When you listen to the Americans, all the talk is about hard cash, the cash from this mineral deal. Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, talking about doing the deal, how Ukraine has to come to the table to grow the cake, as he put it. I think Ukraine's concern is that, yeah, the cake may well indeed grow, but who's going to eat it?
Now, Mark obviously isn't with us today. He's flying back from Florida. Literally the only time that he can escape us is when he has no signal. But he hasn't left us completely without. He's been busy getting the reaction from President Trump's speech in Miami, which is where he called President Zelensky a dictator. Mark caught up with Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's chief negotiator for the Middle East and Ukraine. Have a listen.
Mr. Witkoff, hello. Mark Stone from Sky News. That was a fascinating speech just now. I wonder, do you think that Vladimir Zelensky is a dictator?
Gosh, you've been biting me right on. Look, I think I agree with President Trump. He's got a very, very keen sense of what has to be done to create a lasting peace between Russia and Ukraine. And I follow his lead, and I believe in what he's got to say.
Hi guys, well that was Steve Witkoff, a kind of snatched conversation, but I thought interesting nonetheless. It's been a really interesting few days down here in Miami at this Saudi investment conference. So many different people to talk to, and time as well for some slightly more considered conversations. Have a listen to this with Peter Diamandis, an American entrepreneur, a very wealthy man, a fan of Donald Trump, a Democrat once, not anymore, and a close friend of Elon Musk.
I think that the president is acting much more presidential than he did during the first administration. And I feel like this is the roaring 20s. Like there's this level of energy and there's a sense that, America is back.
As one of America's leading entrepreneurs, what do you say to those in America who are concerned about Elon Musk and about his influence, the richest man in the world in the White House? Unaccountable, some would argue.
I have friends who ask me that.
Right, and what do you tell them?
My comments are never bet against Elon. Period. Number 2, he's the smartest person I've ever met. Number 3, the U.S. has antiquated computing systems and data handling systems that we can't manage what we're doing in the United States without upgrading that. And Elon's going to do that.
Peter Diamandis, tech entrepreneur buddy of Elon Musk. Like much of Silicon Valley, Martha, it seems that he's cozying up to Trump more and more.
Yeah, the tech industry for years was pretty left-skewing, full of sort of progressive forward thinkers. It's remarkable how quickly that's changed. We saw that host of tech CEOs at Donald Trump's inauguration. Meta and Google have announced they're broadly rescinding their diversity, equity and inclusion policies, which are in line with what federal government's doing. Mark Zuckerberg, owner of Meta, he's called for more masculine energy. Google abandoned its hiring goals for women and other marginalized groups. So, I mean, it does seem that, they're now pretty solidly in the Republican camp.
Yeah, speaking of tech bros, the king of them all at the moment, Elon Musk, still cutting spending, yeah?
Yeah, they certainly are still slashing the federal workforce. There's quite a lot of outrage at the moment about cuts to 400 jobs at the Federal Aviation Administration. That's the civil aviation regulator. Donald Trump has said that none of those were critical safety roles, but some did have direct roles in supporting safety inspectors and airport operations. And this, of course, comes after a month where 67 people died in that plane crash in Washington, D.C. We saw a plane upside down on the runway in Toronto. So it is a sensitive subject at the moment. And there are warnings that in industries where sort of the margins between safety and disaster are so fine that some of these cuts, while small in terms of percentages, could well be catastrophic. That's what a woman called Ariel Kane was saying to me. She is another federal worker who has been fired. She was working on a program within the National Institute of Health, trying to reduce maternal mortality, so trying to assure fewer pregnant women die in this country. I started, James, by asking her how she found out she was getting sacked.
It was so unbelievably chaotic. My boss, who's on vacation, texts me a panic text saying people are getting fired. I call him. He is, pretty upset about everything that's happening. He says he has no idea who's getting fired and who's not getting fired. Later in the day, I come home and I have the email and I have to call my boss and tell him I was indeed on the list and I got fired. I was angry. And about an hour later, maybe not even an hour later, 30 minutes later, I fired off a typo-laden text to Elon Musk and it exploded. And so
this was your post on X, ironically, his platform, which has now had 15 million views and I think a few million likes. What did you say? What did you say to Elon Musk?
I sort of just called him out and I was like, hey, you are telling people that those who work on Medicare and Medicaid and scientists are not getting fired. That's not true. I know of scientists who got fired and I work on Medicaid and I got fired. And you're saying that you're doing this for efficiency. I worked in an office that was dedicated to efficiency, and the program I was working on was trying to improve outcomes at lower costs. So the hypocrisy, the disconnect between what they were saying publicly and what I was personally experiencing was what fueled my tweet. I called them minions. They didn't like that either.
Yeah, you think you said, hey, Elon Musk and your Doge minions.
Yeah, I think I did.
This government claims to be pro-family. There was an executive order signed just a few days ago, apparently to try and make IVF more affordable.
It's just PR. But if they are trying to position themselves, which they are, as being pro-family, I would argue that a team working on improving maternal health outcomes and figuring out ways to do that at lower costs would be aligned with their goals. But again, there is lip service and there is marketing and then there is real life.
I think what Ariel was saying there is that sometimes the campaign promises, the words of the Trump administration, are not lining up with what is happening in reality. And they're making cuts to maternal health care staff, yet saying that they are ardently pro-life. Elon Musk is a pro-natalist. He very much believes in the power of reproduction. He is a father of several children, at least 12 that we know of publicly. And in fact, James, just hours before recording this, the music artist Grimes, she shares 3 children with Elon Musk. She launched a pretty nasty attack on X against him. She replied to an unrelated post that Musk had made on X saying, please respond about our child's medical crisis. She said she was sorry to do it publicly, but that he was ignoring the situation, that he wasn't responding to texts or calls or emails. And she said her child, we don't know which of their 3 children this is. We don't know if it's X, who is the 4-year-old who's been at many public appearances with Musk. But she said that child will suffer lifelong impairment if Musk doesn't respond. So a very public calling out of Elon Musk's parenting and a tough accusation for a man who is branding himself as pro-life and pro-family.
We're seeing filtering down, aren't we, the human consequences of change, of rapid change, this kind of full-scale assault on the bureaucracy in this country. A country, that I think recognises bureaucracy has needed cut, that government wastes, something had to be done about that, but the pace of it and I think the way it's operating and who is operating it causes extreme concern. And people like Ariel are asking the question, where does authority lie in all of this? And where is the rationale for it?
Yeah, I was struck by that as I was watching Elon Musk waving his chainsaw around over his head, shouting, let's have some fun, as he's, cutting tens of thousands of jobs from the federal workforce. These are real people's lives. And where is the accountability? Where is the oversight of Elon Musk and the Doge team at the moment?
Okay, that's it for today. Before we go, a reminder to send us your questions for this weekend's Q&A episode.
You can email us on trump100@sky.uk. And if you don't already, please do follow Trump100 wherever you're listening.
Thanks very much for joining us on day 33 of Trump 100. See you tomorrow for day 34.
See you then.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kelner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.